This is the first time the girl has done this kind of work. She happened to meet a difficult Chable's son. Sure enough, the next second, the son ordered the driver to reverse. Then he rolled down the car window. Then he made a gesture, signaling her to come over. The girl went forward and knelt on one knee. "Sir, what are your orders? Can't you see my license plate?" The girl immediately checked and found it started with 24. She was so scared that she immediately apologized to the other person, saying she had made a mistake in giving directions. The VIP of VIPs should have turned right. The young master, however, mumbled a sentence. "Even smiling looks ugly." As soon as the young master left, the girl felt a cold sweat break out. Her colleague blurted out, "This guy is messed up." But she forgot that she was still wearing a loudspeaker. The already not easy to mess with young master got out of the car immediately after hearing this. He walked straight towards the girl. He asked her what she had just said. Seeing this, his colleague wanted to explain. But the young master directly stopped him, causing him to accidentally fall. The girl questioned him if he understood the most basic principles of dealing with people. This remark further angered the young master. He kicked towards the tripod on the side of the road. The manager immediately rushed over to apologize, and threatened the girl that she must apologize, or you and your colleagues will be fired. But the young master said he wanted to see a sincere apology. The girl asked back if he wanted her to kneel down. As she said this, she knelt down. In fact, she didn't want to implicate her colleagues. She couldn't afford to lose her job, because she has an unreliable mother and a younger sister who depends on her. And there were also some debt collectors who would come from time to time. Fortunately, she had a boyfriend, Minsik, who worked at a big company. Although her boyfriend's family was not well off, but he was very attentive to her. He even bought her a necklace for her birthday. Little did she know. For some poor people, love means nothing in the face of profit. And the love of a rich second generation made me look at him with new eyes. He prepared a 100-carat necklace for his fiancée. Although he was reluctant, he still gentlemanly put the ring on his fiancée's finger, because he was doing it for those bold paparazzi. He thought that by following his father's request, he would be satisfied. But he didn't expect his father would make him reflect on how to handle a waiter who was difficult to deal with, and how to deal with the company's plummeting stock price. And he had to handle this mess himself. If he causes trouble, I won't let him go. At the same time, the girl also saw herself. The video of her being forced to kneel in public was exposed. Then, the young master found the girl's address. But the girl led him to a place 10 meters away from her home, and asked him what he was doing in the middle of the night. "My family saw him and thought I was out doing bad things." The young master said it would be more open and aboveboard if he spoke at the door. But suddenly he noticed a surveillance camera above his head. He suddenly understood. Was he mocking the girl? Was he going to use the surveillance camera to provoke him into taking pictures again? Did the little girl have a meticulous plan? The girl didn't understand what he meant. The young master told her to stop pretending. "You're not just deliberately kneeling in the parking lot, are you? Are you taking pictures secretly to get back at me?" The girl was speechless. Indeed, the thoughts of a Chable are beyond the comprehension of the poor. But then, the young master pulled out 2 bills. He asked her to delete the video that was exposed. The girl told him to use his pig brain to think. Would she be stupid enough to let the whole world know how she was humiliated? At this point, the young master really put his hand on his pig brain. Suddenly, he started vomiting uncontrollably. In a split second, the young master lost consciousness. The young master was quickly sent to the hospital. The next morning, after the young master woke up, he was completely dumbfounded when he heard the doctor tell him that he had a tumor in his brain. And it was the most malignant kind of brain tumor. Because it was located in the brain, the surgery had a high risk. Even if the surgery was successful, he would only live for 3 years at most. So it was suggested that he go home and spend the last 6 months of his life well. But he just thought this was another one of his asshole brother's tricks. The girl who took him to the hospital asked if he was awake. The young man asked her back. Besides you, who else knows I'm here? The girl said, I'd like to contact you. But your phone has a password I can't open. And she came here to ask the young man for the advance payment of the inspection fee. She also returned the money in his pocket yesterday. Yesterday, I didn't want to meddle in his affairs, so I could only temporarily keep it for him. Little did I know, these 2 stacks of money would make her regret her actions so much that her guts would turn green. But the man didn't have the heart to care about this now. Before the girl could take out the 2 stacks of money, the young man left. The girl was so anxious that she could only call out to him from behind. She would deduct the inspection fee, and the rest would be returned. The feeling of being on the brink of death made the man panic. He didn't know why God wouldn't let him go. Was it because he was a rich second generation and was living a happy life? Only he knew how hard he was actually living. So he numbed himself with alcohol. When he saw people on the street, he couldn't help but feel envious. It would be so good to be alive. So he continued to get himself drunk. But he didn't know that some people suffered even more. The girl's sister suddenly found 2 yuan in her pocket. Her mother's eyes lit up. Without saying a word, she was going to grab it. When the girl found out, she asked her sister if she had any brains to give the money to such a mother. But the sister said she just borrowed it for a day to tide her over. But the sister was curious where you got the 10 million. That's to be returned to someone else. If Mom can't get it back, you'll return it. I don't care. But she didn't know that this sentence would completely end her sister's life. Sure enough, after the unreliable mother came back, her sister asked her if she really spent all the money. As a mother, she nodded like a child. Her sister completely broke down. She really hasn't changed. She finally believed what her sister had said. You're such a hopeless mother. So she found the yellow-haired man who was in an inappropriate profession. She asked him when he could work. The yellow-haired man was excited and wrote her name on the whiteboard. She knew this path wasn't easy, but she didn't expect it to cost her life. When her sister came back, she found the note her sister left for her. It said she would find a way to solve the problem with the money. Don't look for her in the short term. My sister is really fed up with her sister's temper. Little did she know that her sister was already preparing to start working. And the client was a rich second-generation heir who was about to die. So she took his wine bottle and drank it in large gulps. But the strange thing is, early the next morning, the accompanying woman from last night was soaking in the swimming pool. But suddenly he found something wrong with the woman in the pool. No time to think. Immediately rushed to the rescue. He quickly carried her to the edge of the pool. Then he shook her desperately to wake her up. Seeing no response, he quickly reached for her pulse. She was still clutching the fatal ticket in her hand. Just then the company lawyer arrived. Seeing this scene, he rushed forward. But the man was stunned at this point. Though he was a cynical playboy, the son of a wealthy tycoon, this was the first person he had ever played to death. But he was also in a daze himself. What on earth had happened? Soon, he was taken away by the police. But he hadn't even gotten warm in the seat. He was told he could go back home. It's clear that the power of the Chable is that strong. But he also feels bad inside. He's been squatting at the entrance to the temporary morgue. When he lifted the white cloth, his sister collapsed to the ground. Then she cried out in anguish. She never imagined that her sister, who was laughing and talking yesterday, would be separated from her by life and death today. She doesn't know why this. The heart-wrenching cries made the young master feel a pang of pain. On the way back, he asked his secretary, "Don't you think that person was killed by me?" The secretary could only say no. But the young master himself didn't know if he was the one who did it. Heaven knows how many bottles of wine made him a scapegoat. Just when he learned that he had a brain tumor and wouldn't live long, he decided to give up in despair. He wanted to call his fiancée to come over. "I wanted to inform you about this and break off their engagement. I also found a bar hostess and wanted to stage a scene." When the fiancée arrived, it was the bar hostess who opened the door. The young master was truly drunk and asleep in bed. The bar hostess was truly drunk as well. She stumbled around looking for her clothes. She guessed that the woman with a bad complexion was his fiancée. "So, fueled by alcohol," she said. "Whether you believe it or not, nothing happened between them. He just gave me money to dress like that. I guess he really doesn't want to marry you." Hearing this, the woman directly smashed her with the LV bag. Seeing that she was not satisfied, she continued to smash. After smashing, she scattered a pile of cash into the swimming pool. She wants to get it herself. Aren't you earning money from humiliation? Heaven knows it's her first time doing this kind of work. Looking at the money by the pool, she wiped away her tears. She walked straight towards the pool. Yes, this money is earned by her through humiliation. She deserves it. And after the fiancé stormed out, suddenly she found blood on her hand. Then she looked at her bag. With a sigh, she threw it directly into the garbage can. She hadn't even considered the consequences of a drunk person being injured might have. So, the young master held out a glimmer of hope to find his fiancée. He asked, "Yesterday, I called you to come over. Did you come?" But the fiancée replied, "Am not your servant, why do I have to be at your beck and call?" The last glimmer of hope vanished. So he found the information of the deceased's family. That he couldn't help but wonder if God was making him atone for his sins. Little did he know, his father was cleaning up his mess. He took out a check and asked the company's 2 lawyers to handle the matter. "Fill in the amount yourself. If this matter is exposed, the company's stock will plummet. My younger sister is still at the funeral parlor. My older sister, wearing mourning clothes, rushed to question the police. You're outrageous. What do you mean June committed suicide? You stopped the investigation after only 2 days? But the other party told him it was your sister who wrote her own will. Looking at her sister's will, the older sister simply couldn't believe it. She cried out for them to investigate again. But no one paid any attention to her. The young master outside the door was filled with guilt after seeing this. This feeling of helplessness unconsciously made him think of his childhood. At this moment, he secretly made a decision in his heart. The son accidentally killed someone. His own father unexpectedly vented his anger on his eldest son. The eldest son tried to explain that he was just scaring him. Upon hearing this, his father angrily smashed a cup at him. Frightened, the eldest son immediately knelt down. But it was his subordinate Miho who suffered. His blood dripped down. Faced with such a situation, he dared not speak out. He could only silently endure it. Why should he care? He's just a dog for the Chable family. Little did they know, the quietest dog is the one that bites. Heaven knows that the deceased was his girlfriend's sister. But he didn't even go. Instead, he drank and said he was powerless. Then he found the chairman, handed him a check to fill out himself. But Minsuk calmly said, for something as valuable as silencing this. He thought 10 billion wasn't much. It was worth it for your son or the company. You don't even need to pay the victim's family anything. This is good for everyone. But he couldn't understand at all the pain of losing a loved one. Watching his little sister, who grew up with him, being cremated. His sister cried her heart out. The young master standing outside felt extremely guilty. A day of rain. Ji-hyun has nowhere to go. But the young master is silently watching her from afar. Just then Min-ho, who is handling his affairs, calls him. He says your brother seems to be going to reveal your secret. Is he just bored? Heaven knows how happy his half-brother is that he caused the death. If he goes to jail, then his position would be secure. But just then, Ji-hyen was walking aimlessly on the zebra crossing. And she was walking slower and slower. She couldn't even see the cars passing by. The young master was anxious when he saw this. He immediately got out of the car. Without regard for the passing cars, he ran through the heavy rain to pull Ji-hyen back. Looking at the pitiful person in front of him, the young master suddenly remembered what the doctor told him. In the limited 6 months, do something meaningful. And now, he has found what he wants to do before he dies. He hugged Ji-hyun in the rain. He had to hurry because his time was running out. Ji-hyun assured him that she would return. The young master said intentionally, if you escape, where would I find you? So, please write a guarantee, so I can feel at ease. Ji-hyen readily agreed. No problem. After ensuring Zixion's safety, he would go handle his brother's matter. And told Ji-hyen to wait for him in the car. He found his brother, asking if he wanted to expose him. Take advantage of the reporters being present, let's make it public. But his fiancée on the side was scared. Even Miho, who was handling the matter, felt a little uneasy. He, who was already on his last legs, didn't care about these things. When he saw Ji-hyun coming in, he suddenly hesitated. He didn't want the woman in front of him to know he was like this. Before he could speak, he was pulled down by his brother. Reporters swarmed in, completely ignoring his girlfriend Ji-hyun. Ji-hyun didn't know why. Her boyfriend of 6 years had suddenly become so cold towards her. Heaven knows what he found at the scene that day. He found a pen. The pen was obviously taken by Kaya. But he didn't expose her. Instead, he made a separate appointment with Kaya. He gave her a USB drive containing the surveillance footage. Obviously, a dog that doesn't bark will bite. Secondly, he could be a good person in front of this woman. But he didn't understand her at all. The situation of his girlfriend, whom he had been dating for 6 years. He even found Ji-hyun and broke up with her. There was no reason, he just didn't want to be together anymore. Ji-hyun didn't understand. Everything changed in a matter of days. His sister died inexplicably. His boyfriend broke up with him inexplicably. Even her mother didn't know where she went. Why did the heavens treat her like this? Seeing this, the young master felt even more indescribable discomfort. Little did he know. He was even more pitiful. His life was about to end. Yet he was inexplicably made a scapegoat by 2 bottles of wine. His mother had just been released from prison. His own daughter blamed her. Why did she go in without a word? But my mother said it's not the first time. It doesn't matter. She asked her daughter to call her sister and prepare lunch. She was starving. But what she got wasn't lunch. It was her younger daughter's urn. Seeing this, the mother tried hard not to break down. Because she knew her daughter wouldn't commit suicide. So she found her previous lover. She beat him up fiercely. Did you introduce my daughter to work in that kind of place? But the lover said, this is not important now. How did your daughter die? This is the most important. It is obvious that this guy knows something. Actually, this guy doesn't know the truth. But he felt that things were definitely going to happen for him, as he was a troublemaker in the rivers and lakes. His purpose was very simple. He just wanted to see if he could profit from it. He blatantly rubbed salt into the woman's wound. He was inevitably beaten up. Beatings were unavoidable. But she knew that the person in front of her had some skills. So she carried her daughter on her back and pestered him every day. However, at this moment, her daughter called her. She responded with a few perfunctory words, wanting to hang up. But the other person motioned for the phone to be passed to him. However, she could only meekly comply. Ji-hyun recognized the voice as her mother's lover. This fellow even asked Ji-hyun if she would like to come over to discuss the marriage arrangements between me and your mother. Hearing this, Ji-hyun was truly exasperated. Her mother's attitude was simply too good to be true. Little did she know that her mother's intentions were not what they seemed. She wanted to use alcohol to get the man in front of her to reveal some investigation information. Soon, Ji-hyun found this place. She pushed open the door and pulled her mother away. But her mother said that this guy must have found out something. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. They immediately hid in a corner. The yellow-haired man came up and kicked the man, and asked him where the video was hidden. The man was still pretending to watch a video when he heard the blonde-haired man say, "The surveillance footage from the swimming pool the day Ji-hyun died." The mother and daughter exchanged a glance. Then, Ji-hyun got up and ran away. The blonde-haired man and his group instinctively gave chase. As soon as they left, the man took out his USB drive. The woman wanted to grab it, but the man threw her away and ran off. You know this stuff is valuable. To create an opportunity for her mom, Ji-hyun ran through 49 alleys. Eventually, she was caught. She had no choice but to hand over the 2 discs with color. She asked him if it was necessary to chase her for a disc. The blonde man was speechless. "Little girl, take it home and watch it slowly." At the same time, the little girl's boyfriend received a video. It was the surveillance footage she had damaged. Seeing this, he immediately pulled out the USB drive. He nervously looked around. Then his phone rang. Upon answering, it was a threat from the other side. Covering up information is a crime punishable by at least 30 years. Obviously, the other side's goal was to get money. Meanwhile, Ji-hyun found the young master. Please ask him for help. If you have money, you can know the cause of his sister's death. It turns out that the security guard who resigned left a spare invisible monitor. The man knows about it. Unexpectedly, this video became a hot commodity. Min-suk, who covered up the incident, offered 1 billion won. The deal is tonight. This is simply good fortune from a past life. Little did he know, this is the beginning of his downfall. He had lived for 50 years, yet he didn't understand what it meant to be given a hot potato. The man cautiously opened the door. He found his old lover. He lowered his guard. But unexpectedly, the woman pulled out 2 bottles of yellow liquid. She poured them directly on him. Then she pulled out a lighter. The man asked her to calm down. He then pulled out a USB drive from his pocket. He asked her if she wanted this. The woman was about to grab it. But the man warned her. Put away your lighter. If this USB drive gets lit, then you'll lose everything. Then he started to deceive her. Though this video has the surveillance footage of your daughter's murder. But someone paid 1 billion to cover up this case at night. You don't want to know who's behind this, do you? So we have to catch the bad guy, right? But he didn't expect that there are always bigger fish in the sea. Miho, who wanted to buy his USB drive, found the yellow hair. He asked if he wanted 1 billion. Yellow Hair understood what he meant. He wanted to ensure his own safety. The best way was to make the other person permanently shut up. Miho told him to take care of it. He would be going to meet the other party with 1,000 million yuan that night anyway. And the Chabel's son would also be attending the meeting that night. Looking at the girl in the distance. He didn't know whether to tell the girl about the meeting. Suddenly, the girl seemed to see him. He immediately pretended to be calm and asked the driver to quickly leave naturally. But it was too late. The girl had already blocked their way. Did you call him crazy after getting out of the car? He almost hit you. The girl was only concerned about whether he had found the U-disc. He said nervously, not yet. But his evasive gaze told the girl he was lying. However, the girl said, right now, I only believe you. And with just this sentence, the young master immediately confessed that he had found it. So, let's go together tonight. Let's confirm the content of the surveillance footage together. He was especially afraid of USB drives, you see. The surveillance footage showed him killing his sister. But he believed that he didn't kill her. Night came quickly. Zixian's mother was successfully tricked. They went together to find out who was behind all this. But she also had a backup plan. If he did anything reckless, they would both die. The man gave him a warning. If you see someone familiar, don't get excited. Record the evidence first, and then talk. Miho, who is preparing for the deal, is already waiting for him. On the other side, the young master and Jihyun are also waiting. Soon, they arrive at the location Miho mentioned. Minsuk also sees his mother-in-law in the car. But at this time, the blonde guy has already started to act. He immediately wants to step forward to stop him. But it's too late. A huge truck directly crashed into the small car. Minho motioned him to stop again. But the blonde-haired guy crashed again. Once or twice wasn't enough. As he was about to try again, the car suddenly exploded. Minho was stunned by the scene in front of him. The blonde-haired guy was in a panic. The USB drive hasn't been taken yet. How could it burn up? So he picked up a brick from the ground. He smashed it hard against Yellow Hair's head. This way, it's better to be unnoticed. The two on the other side didn't get the USB drive. Instead, they got the mother's urn. Doesn't she know that the underworld is severely understaffed? Why does she keep taking people from her side? Due to his worry about Jihyun. The young master came to find her. He knocked on the door several times, but no one opened it. So he took out his phone and called her. But he heard the phone ringing inside the house. The young master suddenly had a bad feeling. The man learned that he had cancer and didn't have much time left. The thirst for survival made him cherish every day. But at this moment, someone who didn't want to live called him. The man immediately rushed to her. But because he was in a hurry, he was hit by a car from the front. Although he was in excruciating pain, he told himself that he couldn't die now. So he picked up his phone, stood up, and slowly regained his senses before asking where the woman was. But the woman apologized and said she owed him money. She promised to repay him in the next life, even if it meant being his ox or horse. The man, relying on his sixth sense, found the rooftop and immediately stopped her. But the woman was curious about what happened to his face. The man realized he was bleeding, but he didn't seem to care. Instead, he asked her if the view from here was beautiful. He then climbed over the railing. He said, "Thanks to you, I can stand in a place like this." He slowly stood up. The girl asked what he was going to do. The man said, "Even though we've only known each other for less than 2 days. If you jump, then I will stay with you." Turning around, he was about to leave. But the girl suddenly threw herself at him. They fell to the ground together. Fortunately, it wasn't a 100-meter drop. Yes. although her sister and mother had left her within a few days. She had no relatives left in this world. But she knew that there was no choice but to be strong now. So she asked the man why he was doing that on the roof. The man deliberately made up an excuse and said, "I was afraid that you would implicate me. People might think that I was pressing you for debt and drove you to death." The woman said in embarrassment, "It's my fault that I didn't write a will or something." The man couldn't figure out if she had truly let go. So the next day, he pretended to be very surprised. "Do you guys also live here?" The girl asked her why she came to the slums. The man said that he lived here. The girl immediately looked at her friend. But her friend said she didn't know anything. The man reminded her that he had moved in yesterday. "And you moved in today?" She wanted to change her environment to improve her mood. But she still couldn't sleep. At that moment, she suddenly heard the sound of a pager. She immediately turned on the light to find the source of the sound. Unexpectedly, it was the sound of a man's phone. The girl immediately pricked up her ears to listen. The man, completely unaware, was still on the phone. "Can you hear me?" he said. The pampered son of a chaebol never expected that the soundproofing in a commoner's house was so bad. He could hear every word, even though he couldn't see the person. The night was marked by a steady deterioration of his condition. The pain caused him to moan incessantly. The girl, now wide awake, inquired about his well-being. "What's wrong?" she asked. "If you're feeling better, could you come over?" she continued. The man, gritting his teeth and enduring the pain, agreed to her request. The girl, in turn, had prepared a table full of food, inviting him to dinner. She explained that despite their brief acquaintance, but thank you for his constant help. And today is her sister's birthday. Looking at Ji-yoon's photos, the man felt even more guilty. But the girl thought the food wasn't good. But the man thanked her instead. Thanks to her, he knows how to live a meaningful life. After a night of thinking, he decided to invite reporters for an interview, to tell the story of his sister's murder. But it had to be kept confidential before it aired. But he regretted it immediately after recording. Why was he so impulsive? And his premonition was right. This video became a catalyst. But on that day, someone suddenly found the girl. It was his sister's colleague. He said he still felt uneasy about it. He decided to leave this thing to you. Whether you want to take this path is up to you. The man began to chant at the turtle on the table. "Brother Turtle, could we talk about lending him 10 years of life? If 10 years is too much, even 1 year will do." But the turtle seemed unwilling to pay any attention to him. It crawled away. I thought to myself, if I borrow you for a year, I won't be called a 1,000-year-old turtle. The man simply put him back in his original place, to be your turtle. At this moment, the man desperately wished he could be a turtle and live a little longer. Not for his own pleasure, but to be a real person. A person who wouldn't leave any regrets. But fate was not on his side. Brain cancer gave him only 3 months to live. The girl next door saw this and he quickly ran towards him and asked if he was drunk. The man told her it was okay, and he would be fine soon. The girl was worried and said she would go buy him medicine. But only he knew that this illness had no cure. He tried to slowly stand up. He didn't want anyone to see him looking like a wolf. The next day, an alarm clock woke him up from his sleep. But the alarm clock was from the girl next door. Sound insulation does have its advantages. He didn't have to set an alarm clock. But the girl kept the alarm clock on. This made the man suddenly worried. So he immediately rushed out of the house. He ran to the girl's next door house. His fiancée arrived just in time to see this scene. The man opened her room door. He saw the girl unconscious. Without saying a word, he immediately carried her away. after being admitted to the hospital. The doctor informed him that it was a symptom of nutritional imbalance and mild dehydration. With proper care, she would be fine. The man felt immense guilt after hearing this. Looking at the girl's hand, he slowly reached out to hold her hand. But his reason told him it was not appropriate. At that moment, a wave of inexplicable emotion surged through him. But unexpectedly, the next day, she actually approached this unfamiliar man and actively asked him if he could marry her. The man couldn't understand what was going on with the woman in front of him. It turned out that she had done a genetic test today. Her sister's death was inseparable from his fiancée. To get revenge on his fiancée, she chose to take this path. And the man actually agreed. You know, he is a Chabel's son. It could be seen on the surface that both of them had ulterior motives. The man agreed because he had always thought that her sister was the one he killed. The woman's purpose was not just revenge, but something bigger. Because that day he suddenly received a memory card. When he opened it, he found it was, the man admitted, that he may have accidentally killed her sister. She originally thought that the man was helping him out of kindness. She didn't expect that he was doing it out of a guilty conscience. Seeing this, her kind-hearted worldview completely collapsed. So she made up her mind to make them pay. His fiancée cried when she saw this. But the man was willingly being used by him. This may be the greatest effect he can achieve before his time is up. The simple wedding ended and the two moved into their new home. The man knew that her change of attitude had a purpose. So he told her that our rooms were across from each other. The girl went back to her room and immediately took down the wedding photo. But the man returned to his room and put on some music. Because he sensed that his illness was about to relapse. He clutched his head in pain. He tried his best not to make any sound of pain. The next day, his fiancée asked him about this big matter of getting married. She, the fiancée, was the last one to know. It was obvious that the man didn't know how to explain. His fiancée didn't want to say more. Anyway, their marriage was an arranged one. Suddenly, the man's illness flared up again. Only then did the fiancée realize something was wrong with him. However, this realization only hastened his death. The man was only 25 years old. The first time he had his eyesight checked, an abnormality was discovered by the doctor. The doctor told him that his current eyesight had already been lost by 50%. Hearing this, the man didn't show any emotion. The doctor reminded him that if it happened again, there was a high possibility that he would never see the sun again. The man stood up, pretending to be calm, because he had already prepared himself mentally. So he and his fiancée, the only one who knew about his illness. Oh no. Not anymore. On the surface, it was a meal. In reality, it was to ask for her help to keep it a secret. He didn't want to see pitying glances from others before he died. Even less so, he didn't want to tell his current wife, Jihyun. But as if summoned by his thoughts, she arrived. Even after the engagement was broken off, they could still dine together with such elegance. You thought fate would end just like that in an instant? The man quickly changed the topic. Concerned, he asked her if she hadn't eaten, suggesting they sit down and eat together. But his wife told him not to eat now. She wanted him to accompany her to a charity project. The man was unusually obedient. He actually went with her. But she stopped him. It is said that Xiuhao is sick now. What are you talking about? So you shouldn't put too much pressure on her. The man prepared dinner by hand in the evening. However, because his eyesight is getting blurry now, he can only wipe the soup on the edge of the bowl at close range. After Jixian came back, the man enthusiastically served the food he made. Let her eat it while it's hot. Jixian simply said she was too tired and didn't have an appetite, directly refusing. The man didn't know how many more meals he could cook for her. Chia listened to the sounds from the bathroom, feeling restless and anxious. Soon, the man emerged from the bathroom. After vomiting for so long, the man was incredibly weak. Chia told Soho. There is now a factor therapy method in the United States. It can treat this late-stage cancer. Although the chances are not high, there are successful cases. If he wanted to go, he would contact and arrange it right now. The man asked what the probability of cure was. Kaya said because it was now the research stage, the success rate is about 0.1%. But at least there is hope. But the man said that for someone like him, heaven wouldn't give him miracles. So she had to find Jixian. She wanted to persuade Suho to get treatment. But suddenly her phone rang. Suho actually agreed to go to the United States for treatment. But she was told to keep the treatment a secret again. Although the chances of a cure are relatively small, he still wants to gamble once, hoping to return after a successful treatment. But what he didn't expect was his biological father had ended his life. Having learned about his secret marriage, he sent his subordinates to eliminate his unapproved daughter-in-law, Jihyun. The son, completely unaware of his father's intentions, wanted to make the most of the limited time they had left together. He used the pretext of taking his employees on a trip to encourage Jihyun to get some fresh air. He planned to use this opportunity to tell Jihyun that he was going on a business trip to America the next day. Jihyun simply left without a word. She didn't know that this departure would forever separate them. As Jihyun thoughtfully walked back, she was suddenly ambushed and knocked unconscious. Soon, the man discovered his wife's phone on his way back. But he looked around and didn't see her. However, he then discovered a shoe. A bad feeling washed over him. He searched everywhere. Suddenly, he noticed something on the surface of the sea. Although he couldn't see clearly and wasn't sure if it was Jihyun. But he still rushed into the sea to rescue her without hesitation. And in fact, it was Jihyun. He was already weak. He used all his strength. But his body was too exhausted. Gradually, he sank. He slowly closed his eyes because he was too tired. He hoped that heaven could give him a miracle. The girl had just escaped from the hands of the Grim Reaper. She hadn't even caught her breath. Then she heard the sound of rescue efforts from afar. She slowly approached. But by then, the man had already passed away. The people around couldn't bear to watch any longer. Tears began to fall. But the woman remained completely unaware of what had transpired. Soon, the man was pushed into the incinerator. His wife couldn't bear to look directly at him, and turned her head away. Heaven knows the man is the son of a chaebol. And the one who stormed in angrily was his father. When he looked at his son's portrait, his father couldn't believe it, and asked what happened. But Jihyun asked him, "Don't you know what you've done?" and told him not to pretend. "I know what you want to do to me." Because she found her ex-boyfriend who works for a chaebol. Then she drove recklessly into the wilderness. Then she drove straight into the Han River. The man panicked and promised to tell her the truth. Jihyun asked him to think about their past relationship and tell her everything he knows. "Although I know you were involved, but I'll forgive you in the past." The premise is that she must hear the truth. The man told him it was all because of poverty. Suho broke up with his fiancée. He made your sister act out a scene. But he was beaten on the head by his fiancée. To pick up that money, your sister drowned. To avoid affecting the company, the chairman gave him 10 billion won to settle the matter. But he didn't expect you to. The investigation now would mean marrying Suho. But you don't know that Suho doesn't have much time left. He only feels guilty about your sister's death. He wants to fulfill all your requests while he's alive. But it's clear that the chairman won't be happy with you as his daughter-in-law. I've told you that the chairman is a man who doesn't tolerate any flaws. When I learned that the chairman had already started taking action, I wanted to find you. But it was too late. And Suho, ignoring his own weak body, risked his life to save you. He eventually drowned in the sea. After hearing the whole story, Ji-hyun completely broke down. But Min-ho continued. If you were a fool and didn't dwell on the past, none of this would have happened. Your mother wouldn't have died. Suho might have had a chance to survive. Because the power of the chaebol is not something that ordinary people can contend with. In the end, you will be left with nothing. But now the chaebol, who can cover the sky with one hand, is right in front of her. And she is powerless. At this time, Chia interrupted them, asking if they knew about Suho's illness. What does that mean? He has a brain tumor, and he was told he has 6 months to live. I had already convinced him to go to the United States for treatment. Ji-hyun was filled with even more self-reproach when she heard this. At this time, the secretary gave the chaebol a letter left by his son ahead of time. After returning, looking at the son's last words, the father was heartbroken. Ultimately, under the guilt of his conscience, the chairman announced the true cause of Ji-hyun's sister's death. Although he was thrust into the spotlight, he believes that a company filled with justice will last longer. When Ji-hyun returned to this home again, it was empty, only her. She looked at the turtle that Suho used to take care of. So she fed it according to his way. But this turtle ultimately didn't borrow any lifespan for him. Then he bounced up. The song Suho used to teach her to play. The Wings of Angels. Perhaps ordinary people are right. Sometimes it is a blessing to be a little foolish. Although the truth is important. But life is short. Cherish the present moment. Don't wait until you lose something to regret it.